some of this will be quite obvious to those of you who've done, for example, the New South Wales MOOC, which I would highly recommend. But these are just some of the takeaways I felt I wanted to express in these 8 minutes. And this came up at coffee. We can't assume that students are illiterate because we have so many different types of students. We have mature students, for example, who I think statistically tend to be a bit less illiterate. But as regards our younger students, we shouldn't assume they're illiterate. We've all had that problem where you have a young student with you and you ask them something very basic, whether in the office or in a classroom context, and they don't actually know. So we can't assume anything. On the other hand, we don't want to patronise the ones who know everything already. So we have this constant problem, but never assume that a person knows how to do something. Secondly, we as staff have to model illiteracy, and that was something I got from the New South Wales MOOC. So since this happened about 10 years ago when we started to refer to websites in our Word documents, but I think we're always a bit slow to bring in the digital activity that we engage in ourselves on a daily basis. We're slow to bring that into the classroom, but we should be changing the classroom into a more digital environment because that's what we do every day ourselves. So that's a key takeaway I got from that course. And so it has to be mainstream. E-literacy, digital literacy has to be mainstream. So I got the image of the silo, a Creative Commons image, and we constantly talk about silos in third level education and in education generally. And e-literacy is one of those silos that it should not be in a silo. It's one of those topics that should be throughout. And it's interesting that we're in the library now because the library has been to the forefront in teaching students how to be digitally literate. In the departments and schools we're doing it all the time. In Onad Barra they're doing it all the time. We have to integrate all of this as much as we can. So some key things that I think will help us in this. One is, if you think about the traditional Word handout, which I'm guilty of all the time, in the sense that we've had these Word handouts for 20 years, some of us. You update it every year to insert new articles and so on. But really we need to think also about making that traditional Word handout, if we still use them, more digital. So not just include links to websites, but include screenshots of those websites, so that it's more engaging. It's more likely students will actually click on the link. Because I think I spent ages putting in links to cases and so on. I think that a lot of students don't actually click on those links. So if you want to make them click on them or ensure that they click on them, embed a video rather than just including links to it. It's a simple little takeaway, but maybe you'll find it helpful. Another idea which I think people don't use often enough is when you refer to an article in a handout, tell them which database it's in. It's going to save them a lot of time. So if an article is in Westlaw UK, for example, I put it in brackets after the name, the traditional reference, and I also put a hyperlink. And I'm just hopeful that that will increase engagement and make the document more digital. Include Storifys where possible, or any equivalent. Now, Storify, for those who don't know, is a nice user-friendly site where you create an account and then you can drag and drop YouTube videos, tweets, any other type of content in, and you can keep updating it. So I have one here on the Childcare Act, which I was using with a module which I don't teach anymore, as it happens. So I used to put in links in there, and so then in your handout you just refer them to the Storify, or in your Blackboard you have a link to the Storify, and it's constantly updated. And so it's dynamic and very illiterate, and you're modelling illiteracy by using that. In your emails to students, your announcements, tell them what you want to tell them, but also remind them, you've probably told them in the course outline that they can follow you on Twitter or they can follow a certain hashtag, but keep reminding them, because I think, being a lawyer, I tend to assume that everybody has read every document, but that's not actually true, so you have to keep telling them. And I forget this, but when I do it, I've started doing it more recently. you find students following you, quite soon. If you send an email like this, where you just say, reminder, you can follow my Twitter feed, and just give a link to it. Half an hour later, a student will follow you, and then they'll ask you a question, and there, I'm modelling e-literacy there in the sense that I'm active on Twitter, but I'm also telling them that this isn't a separate thing, it's not in a separate silo, this is something that they should be doing as well. I'm recommending it to them, that they'll benefit from it. So then, coming towards the end then, I created a class a few years ago on using IT for legal research and writing, which is made available to the master's students. And now it's a bit clunky in the way it's set up, but that's because I'm kind of an old HTML person. But still, the idea of it is that rather than bringing them into a classroom and teaching them some aspects of e-literacy, I thought it would be better to have an online class, and then students could click through at their own pace. So I created this kind of mini website, and in the contents it has stuff like general IT type training, but also Microsoft Word. Again, we assume that they understand Microsoft Word, but I sometimes get essays, and I'm sure perhaps it's happened to you, where it looks like they don't actually know how to put in a footnote properly, that they seem to be manually inserting the footnotes. I mean, it might only be one student out of 100, but I think we need to actually teach them how to put in footnotes. We can't assume that they know how to do it. So I have that kind of thing. Opening multiple windows, I find that very useful. Some students don't understand that you can have a website open on the left-hand side of your screen and your Word document open on the right. It's very simple to those of us who are kind of illiterate, but to other people this is a big revelation. It's like, I didn't realise you could copy and paste from the website into your Word document, etc. So then within that, then sometimes I have these little mini YouTube private videos where originally this was a class which I had recorded using Camtasia, so I transcribed all the text, and then it's complicated, but basically the text, I have a little mini video, and then the text of the video is also there, because I feel some students will want to actually print out the instructions. Again, we can't assume that students will be happy with a video. Personally, I don't like videos. If I'm looking up a technical problem, if I find a video, I don't click on that, I click on the text version, whereas I think some people click on the video version. So I'd say, let's provide both. And again, you're modelling e-literacy to them with that. In the web link is a sample of just one of those videos, just so that you see exactly what I mean, and you can look at that later. And then finally, as a kind of a possible theoretical framework for all of this, I came across this idea of TPAC, which is by Kohler and Mishra. It's the idea of technology, pedagogy, and content knowledge. And what it's focusing on is the idea that you obviously have to be aware of the content knowledge in your discipline. So if I'm teaching a module on mental health law, I need to obviously understand that very well. I also need to understand pedagogy. So many of us have done a teaching and learning qualification of some sort. And then I need to understand the technology, like how to use the web and how to use the databases. But ultimately, we need to integrate all of this and be very aware. Again, it goes back to the idea of silos, that all of these three are intersecting constantly in what we do and are not separate from each other and are embedded completely into the student experience, the staff experience. And I'm championing away here now, but that's what we're supposed to do. But I do recognise there are downsides to all of this. I mean, not everybody is as comfortable with all of this as some of us are. We could talk forever about the possible downsides, but today I'm going to be positive and say this framework I found very helpful. And to take a tangible example, I mean, if you take a solicitor's practice in Cork, I think they're going to achieve a lot more the better, the the higher their skills are in technology, they're going to be a more successful practice. So therefore, we need to produce students, obviously, and graduates who are at the cutting edge of technology, because they're going to be working into 50 years into the future, where the technology will be even more important to what they do. And so modelling e-literacy is crucial to all of that. I think that's the end of it, yeah.